There was an interesting article in the Chalice Well Newsletter in 1990, published by the Chalice Well Trust in Glastonbury. It was written by Gordon Strachan, administrator of the Church of Scotland's Sea of Galilee Centre near Jerusalem, and concerned some standing stones in Israel. He'd been sitting at the Garden Tomb, Jerusalem, a place associated with Joseph of Arimathea, who, according to the Gospel account, was the owner of the tomb in which the body of Jesus was deposited after the crucifixion. He was thinking of the Chalice Well Garden at Glastonbury, also associated with Joseph in his legendary visit to Britain with Jesus when young, and later. He asked a colleague where Arimathea was, and was told it was likely to have been at Ramla, near Tel Aviv. Shortly afterwards he met an archaeologist and happened to ask if there were any standing stones in Israel, and was surprised to hear that there are, at Tel Gezer near Ramla. As it was the second time he'd heard the name that week, he decided to visit the site. He found the stones on a windy ridge near Tel Aviv, standing in a straight line in a slight hollow. 3 were about 12 feet high, 3 about 8 feet, and the rest smaller. There was also a square block like an altar in the middle. This site is known as the High Place. Built in the last stage of the Middle Bronze Age too, the purpose of these standing stones is unknown to this day. Tel Gezer, the site of the abandoned Arab village of Abu Shushesh, is an archaeological site in the foothills of the Judean mountains at the border of the Shefra region, roughly midway between Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. It's now an Israeli national park. In the Hebrew Bible, Gezer is associated with Joshua and Solomon. It became a major fortified Canaanite city-state in the first half of the 2nd millennium BC. It was later destroyed by fire and rebuilt. The Amarna letters mention kings of Gezer swearing loyalty to the Egyptian pharaoh. Its importance was due in part to the strategic position it held at the crossroads of the ancient coastal trade route linking Egypt with Syria, Anatolia and Mesopotamia, and the road to Jerusalem and Jericho, both important trade routes. Joseph of Arimathea was traditionally a trader. It was occupied over a period of more than 3,000 years. Like many archaeological sites in Levant, Tel Gezer is centred on a man-made mound called a tell. A tell consists of several layers or strata, each of which contains the material remains of a period of human habitation and now rests on the layer representing the previous period of habitation, and beneath the remains of the period that followed. The mound of Tel Gezer is about 3 times as long as it is wide, about 650 metres long, running east to west, by 200 to 250 metres wide, and is, with a hill on the east and west ends, connected by a low point called the Saddle. Having a picnic at the stones, he looked at his map and noticed that the nearest village was called Ayalon. There was a river Ayalon nearby as well as a Valley of Elon. He was struck by the similarity of the word to Avalon and wondered if there might be a connection with Glastonbury, especially in view of the Joseph of Arimathea collection. Aylon Valley is a place in the lowland of the Shephelah in Israel and the West Bank. In the Tel Amarna letters written during the last 12 years of Pharaoh Akhenaten, 14th century BC, Abdi Heba speaks of the destruction of the city of Ayalon by the invaders and describes himself as afflicted, greatly afflicted, by the calamities that had come on the land, urging the king of Egypt to hasten to his help. The Valley of Elon was first mentioned in the book of Joshua as where Joshua defeated 5 Amorite kings. After the kingdom divided, Ayalon became the boundary between the kingdoms of Judah and Israel. According to the legend, Joseph of Arimathea came to live and eventually die in Glastonbury. Is it possible he brought the Aylon Avalon name with him? The Aylon River. The Roman Catholic Church at Ramla was indeed dedicated to Joseph, as well as Saint Nicodemus, but the monk in charge did not know why, except that an ancient tradition linked him with the town. The present church was built in the 19th century on a site that Christians claim is the biblical Arimathea. It's managed by the Order of the Franciscans.